It is not true.
It's not true.
All right, thank you. And with that, I will yield back to the Vice Chair.
Thank you. Okay, recognizing the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to thank the witnesses. It's been a long hearing and still more to go. This is a very, very important hearing on an issue that the American people are paying close attention to, the shock that we could have as a government separated children from their families. The questions I have will start out with when exactly this policy began. So my first question is to Mr. McHenry. You referred in your written testimony that on April 11, 2017, a full year before the zero tolerance policy for first-time entry misdemeanor 1325 cases were publicly acknowledged, on April 11th, then Attorney General Sessions directed all U.S. attorneys' offices along the southwest border to work with DHS to develop new guidelines for prosecuting 1325 cases. General Sessions directed that the new guidelines be submitted to the Deputy Attorney General by April 24th, 2017. Did the U.S. Attorney's Office submit those guidelines as directed?
It's my understanding that the U.S. Attorney's Office has complied with the directive in 2017.
Can you provide those memos as well as any other related documents such as agreements between the U.S. Attorney's Office and Customs and Border Patrol to this committee?
I'll take that request back and discuss it with our Office of Legislative Affairs.
Okay, Madam Chair, maybe we can follow up through this committee in a more formal way to get that important information to me and particularly the people of Arizona. On the April 2017 memo also directed the U.S. Attorney's Office to designate a Border Security Coordinator to work with DHS to oversee the prosecution of these offenses, including misdemeanors, and record and routinely report prosecution statistics. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what the memo directed.
Can you provide this committee with all of the prosecution statistics that were collected through this initiative?
We can take that request back as well. The Executive Office for U.S. Attorneys does typically provide statistics on a yearly basis, so they may have already been provided.
All right, and I think we'll be asking for that in a more formal way. I believe that these guideline statistics may show that the first chapter of this administration's family separation policy, and it's important that we see them, particularly as it relates to timeline. Now, I'm deeply troubled by some of the horror stories that I've heard about how children were literally ripped away from the arms of their parents. Stories from parents in which Border Patrol agents told them that their children were being taken for a bath or out to play and then never seeing their children again. Widely reported, obviously, in the media. These stories raise important questions. So my next questions will be for Chief Provost. Chief Provost, during and prior to zero tolerance, what specific training were given to CBP to agents on how to physically separate a child from their parent? Now, I'm not talking about who to separate. I'm talking about the actual physical separation of parent and child.
Starting at the academy, the agents are trained how to deal with family units. And then beyond that time frame, every year we follow the law and we have training on TVPRA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, and Flores, which addresses care as well as the treatment of those in our custody.
Are those policies written down?
TVPRA, PREA, Flores, yes.
Okay. Are there written policies
specifically
Are there written policies specifically about advising agents on the actual physical separation of parent and child?
Not that I am aware of, but I can tell you that any allegations, and I am not aware of what you stated earlier, but any allegations of such are taken very seriously by CBP and the Department of, and DHS Office of Inspector General either investigates or the Office of Professional Responsibility on any and all allegations.
You indicated that these policies are not in written form, but were still provided.
The policies are in written form.
That the policies provided training to those agents as to how to physically separate. Are you aware of whether or not those policies were created in consultation with child welfare experts?
If I may be clear, too, we are talking acts. So some of these, we're talking Prison Rape Elimination Act, the Trafficking Victims, these are laws. So I can't speak to the consultation in relation to those.
How about trauma experts? You've heard testimony here today, questions from members of this committee about how traumatic this event would be in the child's life, to be taken away from parent, even for a short period of time, how that could have a lifelong impact on that child. In preparation for your agents to engage in that activity was with their consultation with trauma experts on how to best
Not that I'm
implement this
aware of.
policy.
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there anything to prevent a Border Patrol agent from deceiving a parent when separating a child?
The gentleman's
again,
time has
my-
expired, but you may answer.
My agents are compassionate law enforcement professionals that are trained to deal, like any other law enforcement professional, with what is a very difficult situation. If that were to occur and an allegation were made or we were aware of it, it would be investigated.
Thank you.
Mr. Jeffries is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank all the witnesses for their presence here today.